Now, for more on the potential business implications of sanctions in Russia, we are joined by Charles Ortel. He's the managing director of Newport Value Partners, which provides research to executives and investment firms. Thanks for joining us, Charles.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, we're already seeing that some of the events in Crimea are having a negative impact on the economy in Russia. Today, we just saw that Standard & Poor's put Russia on negative outlook, so that could potentially increase their borrowing costs. How bad do you think all of this could get for the Russian economy?
Well, I actually think there's more of a danger to the West than there is to Russia. I mean, you have to remember that Russia controls tremendous natural resources. They sell into Europe. Europeans really need to buy their natural gas, to use the natural gas. When you look at the trade balance, it's not clear to me that Russia is the weak player here, and the reverse, I think, is the case.
Okay, but at the same time, I mean, Russia is so reliant upon its energy sector, and there are tools that have been talked about. For example, here in the U.S., there's talk about potentially releasing some of the reserves that we have, the petroleum and gas and oil reserves. So that is a possibility. That, of course, would push energy prices down, which would make Russia very vulnerable. So is it really accurate to say that the West is most vulnerable in this situation?
Well, again, yes, because I think the impact on the daily spot price of energy might be substantial on a day, but the balance of the stock of wealth is a very different story. And Russia actually has since 1991, they built up a large amount of foreign reserves, and their external debt is really not that great. In fact, it's much less than countries like Germany and France and Switzerland and Belgium and other places that really need this secure supply of natural gas.
All right, but why then are we seeing more of a negative market reaction, say, in Russia than we are here in the U.S.? I mean, the U.S. markets haven't really been reacting very negative to everything that's been going on in the region.
Well, I think the central banks have a tremendous influence upon markets, both positively and negatively, and I think our central banks in the West very much need the markets to remain strong. Because they are so stretched, their balance sheets are so stretched, and the Russian market's pretty thin. So if you're a big player, you can move those markets more effectively than Russia can, say, influence our market.
Okay, and then in terms of American companies, they're obviously not immune to what's happening in Russia because actually American companies represent the largest number, essentially, of businesses in foreign direct investment in Russia. Companies like GE, companies like ExxonMobil, they're pretty worried right now. What are the stakes for them?
Yeah, I think you picked some very good ones. I think GE is going to have a hard go of it, and I think that Putin and the Russians can make life very difficult in the short term and the medium term for American companies and for companies of any country that buck the Russians.
Is there any risk that perhaps Russia could seize some of these assets of these companies?
Depending on
Do you think that they would go that far?
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they've seized portions of the Crimea.
Okay, and I mean, essentially, right, what we're seeing is that the sanctions really are affecting individuals at this point. We've seen one bank in Russia that has been sanctioned, but we're not at the point yet where companies have been sanctioned, and we're not seeing trade restrictions yet. Do you think that things are going to get that bad that we could see trade restrictions, and what would the impact to the global economy be?
Well, I think we really should all take a step back from the brink here. I wish we could do that, because when you take a hard look at it, the Russia in 2014 is not the Russia of 1990, 1991. Actually, Russia's policies on economics are far to the right of the U.S. I mean, their top income tax rate's 13% in Russia. Putin has amassed reputedly a large fortune. He's a capitalist. And the problem I think the Russians see looking at the mess in Europe is that actually a lot of the Western European states are unstable. I mean, we remember the banking crisis of just a few years ago. That's not resolved. And it'd be nice, actually, if that reset button had been pushed the first time, if America and Russia could have had a frank conversation about how to fix the problems in Western Europe to our mutual benefit. Instead, we're playing like it's 1989 all over again.
All right. Now, also, Russia has said that if there are more sanctions, that they would engage some of their other trade partners, i.e. the East. What could all of this mean for Russia's relationship with China, do you think?
Well, yeah, there are all sorts of complications with China, but I think the most important common interest is that both Russia and China are arguing that the world economic system is too dependent on the dollar, the euro, and the yen as reserve currencies. And I think in that, Russia and China are absolutely right, and it would behoove all of us to move to a new system where it was more responsibly managed, where the reserve banks cared about the wealth that had been built up as opposed to the populist impulses, which are driving the system the wrong way.
Okay, and last question here, just wanted to know, what do you think the end goal here is in this sort of tit for tat that's going on with the sanctions? Because, you know, Russia has annexed Crimea. It doesn't look like they're going to give that up. What does the U.S. want at this point, do you think?
Well, I think we're living in dreamland right now, because I think we have, in November of last year, the official U.S. policy was to renounce the Monroe Doctrine, which I think is a dangerous thing to do, to create a vacuum of power into which Russia is rushing in at this point. I don't think they stop in the Crimea. I don't think they stop in eastern Ukraine. I think they have a powerful case to make to the eastern states that, you know, reject this Western European approach of gigantic bureaucracies and taxes. Come with us. And
So you see them getting involved in many other regions, Moldova or something like that.
Moldova. Poland, you name it.
Wow.
Baltics.
Okay.